Pretty sure.
Yeah.
Oh, gotta get their fast shot.
Yeah.
Gotta get their fast shot.
Hello Britball Nation and welcome to the scoop following week 8 of Uniball. We've been reliably informed that on Sundays some of the Britball Nation actually do something other than pay attention to our manic live coverage of each and every Britball game. Little things like working, supporting or even playing in the actual games themselves all rather inconveniently get in the way of keeping yourself up to speed with the results and ramifications from across the nation. Never fear, DC is here with a scoop of the important bits from the past week of action across the nation. Yep, we're getting the scoop out early this week, which is just the first of a number of changes you'll see across our coverage in the coming days, but more on that later. As you'll have figured by this coming out on a Monday, there'll be no highlights in this scoop, rather we're stripping it back to more of a news show, taking a look at the important occurrences on and off the field this past week. Looking back at the past 7 days, and we were really pleased to see the nation enjoying and engaging in our video submission awards. If you didn't see them over the break, they're well worth checking out. We've seen our Pass of the Year and Rush of the Year selected and awarded, and we have Boom of the Year currently open to vote, with Player of the Year 2016 to follow soon. If you haven't been paying attention to Britball over the mid-season break, go take a look. These videos are great at highlighting some of the skills on show across the nation in 2016. Sometimes the tape quality isn't always on point, but the plays certainly are. In fact, you can check out all of our Britball Nation Awards 2016 coverage at the link in the description down below. Look into this past weekend's fixtures and we'll get the crummy stuff out of the way first and take a look at the number of fixtures that didn't get played this week. Out of 13 Division 2 fixtures this weekend, we ended up seeing nearly half of them scratched, with 6 games never getting underway on Sunday. Some are less of a concern. If you look at the likes of Aberystwyth and Bournemouth, they've already booked in their rescheduled game for Rain Week at the end of the year, and apparently the Southampton Stags, Chichester Spitfires and KCL Regents have mutually agreed a way to get all of their fixtures resolved ahead of the season's end. However, some are more concerning. The KCL Regents had to push their game back due to some fairly bizarre issues with their pitch. If you take a peek at the most recent BAFRA news flash, highly recommended reading for anyone who's wanting to track some of the news and moves from around the nation, we can see that the Regents have been having issues with five-a-side football games being played on a neighbouring pitch, causing some obvious safety issues. Seemingly, their athletic union has been of little help resolving the problem, and in fact this is a trend we're seeing across many of the bottom tier teams, that they're simply not getting the support that they need from their parent institution and unions. As we mentioned, the Regents, Stags and Spitfires apparently have a plan to get their games played out, so let's hope this one doesn't throw too big a spanner in the works. More worrying still, we had 2 teams unable to muster the minimum game day roster to get their games played out on Sunday. The Chester Legion have had a tough start to their Boxball life. Entering the hotly contested 2A North, they struggled to build momentum ahead of the Christmas break, and between illness, injury and exams, weren't able to put a squad together for the game against Bangor this weekend. Similarly, the Northampton Nemesis, a team that shocked the league in their first ever Uniball season by heading to the playoffs in their rookie year, weren't able to find 16 players on Sunday morning and were forced to contact the Huddersfield Hawks to let them know the game wouldn't be going ahead. Obviously, we hope both teams are able to right the ship before the season progresses too far, but for one Division 2 programme that ship has already sailed. Or perhaps sunk in this case. Yes, they've tried to find a way to make it work, but the Westminster Dragons have had to accept the reality that they'll not be able to step out onto the gridiron competitively this season. With the AU not sorting a coaching staff until just prior to the season kicking off, the Dragons were unable to recruit and register a sufficiently stocked roster to play a single game so far this season, and their withdrawal from the 16-17 campaign means we've seen back-to-back unfinished seasons for the London team. This leaves the 2A South East, initially the largest conference across all the tiers with 8 teams, down at only 6. Though good news for all the Dragons conference rivals, you all just bagged yourselves another notch in the win column. Though we get the impression many of them would rather have played the game, as fixtures have been few and far between in that conference this season. Including the Rain Week, we've had 9 weeks of season so far, but only 7 games played in the 2A South East as a whole. The overall situation in Division 2 with so many games dropping has led to rumblings that, considering how successful the tier system has been in improving competitiveness across the league, is there an argument for a 4th tier next year? Many Division 2 teams felt that the reduction to a 6-game season this year was punishing the many for the failings of a few, and so rather than finding ways to jam every team that makes the cut according to Bucks into the bottom tier, are we at the point where we need a 4th tier for those teams that are going through lull or working up to being ready to join the league, to compete in a smaller and thus cheaper season, but likely with a more geographically dispersed selection of teams who are similarly building or rebuilding to competitive status in the league? Of course, that's just one idea, and we'd love to hear your thoughts on it, on both the current tier system and ways it might be improved to ensure teams get the competitive seasons they deserve. Just let us know in the comments down below. Moving on to the more positive stuff, and we're not going to look through each and every scoreline as we have done in previous scoops, but instead pick out those which really stood out to us. And there were some big scorelines on Sunday, both in terms of impact but also scale, as our burger graphic will finally be dusted off and introduced to the new year. At the midway point through many of the fixtures yesterday, we thought there was going to be little to no chance of seeing any big juicy burgers through week 8, as a fair selection of the games went into the half scoreless or close enough. However, some of the teams were clearly looking to make statements in their return from the mid-season break, and we saw not one, not two, but 3 50 burgers on the grill on Sunday. For the Nottingham students, a burger's been due for a while now, as they've consistently dominated their opponents in each fixture so far this campaign, but between mercy clocks and rep in depth, they've fallen shy of a burger until this weekend. Similarly, the Northumbria Mustangs have shown great offensive potential and were averaging 33 points a game through the first 4 fixtures, but on Sunday they let rip in a historical first win for the Mustangs over their varsity rivals, the Newcastle Raiders, posting up 52 points to diddly ahead of the final whistle. Finally, and perhaps most significantly, we saw a rare 50 burger in the Premiership North. In a conference where the average margin of victory has been less than a score through the first half of the season, the Saints blew up in the second half of the game against the Loughborough students, racking up score after score after score in a statement win that sees the Saints stake their claim on the Premiership North Conference title, and almost certainly will see them hold on to their number 1 spot in our Premiership power rankings. Other scorelines worth talking about include Reading coming oh so close to scuppering Surrey's season. The Stingers broke out to an early 2-score lead, but the Knights closed things up in the second half. Pulling within reach with their third score, the Knights went for 2, seemingly due to the lack of a kicking game, but came up short, allowing the Stingers to grind out the clock in a nail-biter that sees the Stingers stay hot on the tails of the conference-leading Portsmouth Destroyers. Elsewhere in Div 1, we saw a very impressive scoreline out of the UE Bullets Solent Redhawks fixture. The Bullets had seemed a shadow of their former selves so far this season and looked locked into the demotion spot coming into the second half of the year. They opened their season with a 45-0 hammering at the hands of the Redhawks and had followed up with disappointing showings against long-time rivals Exeter and Cardiff. However, something has clearly clicked for the Bullets over the mid-season break as they welcomed the Redhawks to Filton on Sunday and turned in a confident 28-14 victory, turning over in the space of only half a season a side that nearly burgered them in week 1. The Hawks still hold the head-to-head over UE thanks to the margin of victory in that first game, but now it will be a race to the finish between 3 1-win teams in the southwest to see who gets to avoid the drop. To Division 2, and we had one hell of a shocker in the 2A North as the previously winless Kiel Crusaders managed to hold off what appeared to be the on-form team in the conference, shutting down the undefeated and largely unchallenged Liverpool Raptors for 4 full quarters before pipping them to the post in overtime. It's a win with huge ramifications for the conference as a whole, as not only does it knock the Raptors from the top spot, but it also makes it now incredibly difficult for the likes of Bang and Mud Dogs to top out the conference short of the Leeds Griffins imploding through the second half of the season. Bang's best hope of snatching the number 1 spot in promotion after their narrow loss to Leeds in week 5 was for a 3-way tie at 5-1 between themselves, Liverpool and Leeds, and to win out on tiebreakers. Kiel's win has utterly messed that up however, and the only way to get a 3-way tie now is if someone else as well as the Raptors helps the Mud Dogs out and snatches a win from the Griffins. That said, we'll take a closer look at that in our If the Season Ended Today article series, which gets underway this week. Finally, the last scoreline we'll focus on comes out of the 2A Midlands, where we caused something of a kerfuffle last night by sharing claims passed to us by an MMU affiliated source that the Eagles had a go-ahead score called back due to issues with an illegal format of face cage on the play which might have seen them go ahead for the win. Long and short of it all, the source has since retracted the claims, despite confirming he was 100% certain at the time of sharing the information, and it was rather a misunderstanding regarding a situation which saw 3 players removed from the game due to illegal face masks, 2 from MMU and 1 from Leicester, and a holding call that actually caused the score and play to be called back earlier in the game, though notably not a go-ahead score. There was further controversy when the MMU D-line reportedly hit the Longhorns QB on a kneel down to round up the game, claiming the refs had not informed them as such, but the long and short of the whole situation appears that it was a bit of a mountain made out of a molehill. Or was it? Let us know what you think down below. Digging deeper into the actual violations that started this whole mess, and it's actually a fairly interesting situation when looking at what face masks currently are and aren't allowed. Rules with regards to face masks were updated in 2016 by the IFAF Rules Committee to restrict the use of overbuilt face masks, with a general rule of thumb initially being anything with 5 or more horizontal bars below the eye line was a no-no. Therefore, looking at the face cage shared during discussions about the situation on our Facebook page, the following was posted up as an example of the face cages in question that were deemed illegal during the fixture. As you can see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 bars, bad. However, in a memo issued by the IFAF Rules Committee following the rule amendments in 2016, the UK's own Jim Briggs, chairman of the IFAF Rules Committee, noted that face cages of the following format, 2 double bars and 1 single bar, are to be considered legal. We'll of course need to do some further digging to confirm if these were in fact the style of face cage that were penalised, but certainly it does seem to highlight a situation where, as is so often the case in this game, the better informed you are about the intricate rules of our sport, the better equipped you are to win. All that said, what do you think of the situation? Were you one of those players removed from a fixture for sporting a face cage you feel should be considered legal? Should equipment checks for items such as this be resolved ahead of fixtures getting underway, so teams aren't forced to remove players from the field midway through a fixture with potentially game-changing ramifications? As ever, we want to know your views on it, so let us know down below. Elsewhere around the nation, we had the NFL Pro Bowl last night, returning to its classic format of AFC versus NFC, and the game was, well, much the same as it was way back when, with a few trick plays, a lot of half-assed blocking and tackling, and in the end the AFC ran out 20-13 winners. However, what did stand out from the weekend was the Pro Bowl Skills Showdown, which looked both awesome fun but also something we'd love to see replicated here in the UK if anyone happens to have some spare lumber and concrete lying around. Build it and they shall come. It wasn't just the stars stateside having fun in the sun in Orlando, as the Britball Nation's own UK Dukes headed over and played a little bit of catch. One-handed catch with seemingly none other than Odell Beckham Jr. Wait, we thought he was playing in Teesside this weekend. And finally for this week's scoop, we'll talk about, well, the scoop itself and our other content moving forwards. As you'll have noticed, no highlights, just news and discussion for this week's scoop. Rather, our goal is to shift highlights to later in the week so we're able to talk about the games from the previous weekend while they're still fresh in everyone's minds. In a similar vein, we're going to bring the power rankings forwards in the week to get them out to you sooner, while true divisional highlight reels will be shared later in the week with highlights from each and every game we're able to grab footage from. We know no one wants to go through their week without a little bit of Britball every day, so we're going to be looking to standardise our weekly schedule here at DC through the latter half of the Uniball season with 5 days a week of content, obviously alongside scores and any live streams we're able to share with you all. The plan is for your weekly Britball to look something like this. On Monday, upanddoublecoverage.com will have the ever popular Good Week Bad Week, looking at the highs and lows of the previous weekend's fixtures, while on our YouTube channel we'll look to get the scoop out to you nice and early, talking about all the important bits from the previous week that you might have missed. Tuesdays we'll be sharing a thought-provoking editorial article, or perhaps a guest piece looking at some of the particularly interesting or perhaps controversial subjects from around the nation to inspire discussion and provoke thought and engagement, while over here on YouTube we'll get quickfire power rankings out for each tier, still no highlights, just Team DC's thoughts on how things stack up across the nation. To Wednesday, and we're going to keep Hump Day fairly flexible, but through the latter part of this Uniball season we'll have our If the Season Ended Today series, looking at who's where in the race for the postseason, and our Wilson X League will be getting underway here on YouTube. Thursday we'll have divisional highlight films, hopefully bringing you video highlights from each and every fixture played that previous weekend. While on the site we introduce you to our new column we're bringing in for the build up towards the summer season, DC Gets You Back in the Game, as DC's own qualified personal trainer and Britball coach Darren Helly takes one particularly out of shape DC staffer, and also you the nation, on a journey to get you fighting fit in time for the season kicking off in April. Finally, Friday, as ever, we'll have our predictions for the upcoming weekend's games over on the site, while here on YouTube we'll be sharing our top 10 plays of the week from across the Britball Nation. This of course is on top of all the usual news, events, recruitment information, tips and tricks that we share as and when, as well as some of the new regular columns we're currently putting together to hopefully become part of your balanced Britball diet. Our hope is that by putting out a schedule and sticking to it, we can, as a community, begin to build some structure in the way that we grow the game and reach out to new potential players and fans of the sport. Obviously, we've never done something like this before with this much content in these new formats, so we'll really appreciate your feedback moving forwards, and we'll continue to shape our coverage to ensure we're presenting the British game in the best way possible to help grow the sport in the UK. All that said, our short scoop's not proving that short after all, so we'll leave it there. Make sure you subscribe so you don't miss out as we move towards daily content, and give this video a quick thumbs up as it really helps us reach a wider audience. But in the meantime, as always, play hard, play safe, and go check out Robert Moore's Good Week Bad Week over on doublecoverage.com.